Thank you kindly for joining us. My name is Jerry Miller. It's good to connect with you guys through the I Love CVille Network. A lot we got to cover on today's program. We have the Virginia Athletic Department asking for quite a bit of money. And by quite a bit of money, I'm talking about, we're talking yearly salaries, if not more in some cases, to maintain season tickets at the John Paul Jones Arena. The worst tickets are requiring a gift of $10,000. The best tickets are requiring gifts of $150,000. Ladies and gentlemen, we will put in perspective what the University of Virginia is doing from a season ticket standpoint, and I do not. I see both sides of this. I understand the fan base that currently right now is absolutely up in arms. Loyal fans that have stuck through Virginia athletics and Virginia sports through thick and thin that are saying, you guys want $150,000 from me, a gift, and then I have to pay for my season tickets on top of that? I get that. Unfortunately, this is the world of college athletics we live in, where Isaac McNeely, a third year at UVA, can transfer from Charlottesville, go into the transfer portal, and commit to Louisville and earn more than $2 million in compensation to play for a basketball team in Kentucky. Okay? It's the college basketball world we live in where a senior at a local private school commits to UVA to play basketball, and he's rumored to be compensated $1.2 million to throw a basketball in a hoop, and that's Chance Mallory, and that's St. Anne's Belfield Academy. It's the world we live in. We'll talk about the new 5-year reseeding policy where if you do not pay large sums of money to the University of Virginia, you will no longer keep your season tickets at the John Paul Jones Arena. A lot of folks are saying, how could this come out now when the team has struggled so much of late? And I get that. And my response to that will be, well, if the team needs to rebound or if the team wants to improve and rebuild, this is what needs to be done. I see both sides. I literally see both sides. We'll talk about it today. I want to talk on today's program, Harvard University. Oh my, oh my, oh my. $2.2 billion the Trump administration has frozen after Harvard rejects Trump demands. The administration, Trump demands included auditing viewpoints of the student body to address anti-Semitism at the expense of federal funding. The federal government last night said it was freezing more than $2 billion with a B in grants to Harvard after the school said it would not accept the Trump administration demands that included auditing viewpoints of the student body. This is it's a pissing contest, really. And on one side, you have what is probably the most prestigious university in the world, depending on how you look at it. And on the other side, you have a man in Trump who probably backs down from no one, who lately has genuinely flexed his muscles and said, it's not Musk who's the most powerful person in the world, it's me. I mean, he's driving market trends just by offering commentary, and the commentary is being offered every day, it seems, either on his Truth Social platform, the Trump media platform, or just by talking with the media in press conference fashion. I want to talk about the $2.2 billion in grants that are frozen. That is a scary proposition for institutions of higher learning, and how it could or how it may apply to the University of Virginia. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a serious proposition that we need to talk about. And we're going to talk about it with Judah Wickower, with you, the viewer and listener, and as a family on the I Love CVille Show. I want to talk on today's program more commentary on the Delevan listing. That Delevan listing, Judah Wickower, is gained a lot of chitter chatter following our program yesterday. Some people are saying that's the value. Other folks like Deep Throat are saying this is an assessment nightmare and the algorithms are completely wrong. The value offered for the structure on the dirt in Fifeville is nowhere near what the true value of that structure is. It's a teardown. Rob Neal shares his perspective on yesterday's program that I want to highlight. I thought it was very good. Regardless, Delevan, a home built in 1960 that has an asking price on Zillow of $300,000, an LLC that Deep Throat has sloughed out, an LLC owned, he says, through his investigation online by a Lebanese banker, is just a startling indicator of just how expensive this market has become. We'll give you the photos and we'll give you more of our take, our analysis on the I Love CVille show. Ginny Who wants me to remind everyone that today is 5-cent cone day at Coors Brothers. 5-cent cone day at Coors Brothers. Thank you, Ginny Who, for that heads up. We always appreciate one of the key members of our family sharing positive trends. And speaking of positive trends, I, again, have been very impressed with what Selvedge Brewery is doing on Ivy Road. I want to highlight some of that positive perspective of my family's interaction on what is quickly becoming one of the top-notch breweries in the greater Central Virginia area, and that's Selvedge on Ivy Road across from Boar's Head. The food is good, the menu is priced fairly, the beer is very good, the service is very good, and it's becoming the 2025 version of a family outing. It's interesting to say that in 2025, families with young children are going to breweries for their food, their dinner, their dessert, and their drinks. When I was growing up in 2025 with my parents, we would go to like Ruby Tuesdays or like Applebee's or like Bennigan's or like Friendly's, TGI Fridays. Remember, if you are of, let's say, an age, maybe 35 to 55, when you were young and you were going out for a family dinner, that family dinner often included one of these national chains like the Ruby Tuesdays, the Applebee's, the Chili's, the Bennigan's, the Friendly's, and like a Pizza Hut. Remember the pizza buffet? At Pizza Hut, you could go play a tabletop Miss Pac-Man game, get the pizza grease from the deep dish pizza on the tabletop Pac-Man. You could pick all kinds of pizza out of the buffet. Now the time has completely changed, and the young family is eating out, not at a Bennigan's or a Pizza Hut or a Ruby Tuesdays or Applebee's. Instead, it's going to a place like a Selvedge Brewery or a Pro Renata. And I want to talk about why that trend has changed on today's show. I also want to have the conversation we didn't get to yesterday. What's the niche incubator that should be launched in the Charlottesville area? We talked about the positives that New Hill is doing, Yolanda Harrell, with Beacon Kitchen in the Kathy's Shopping Center over in Belmont. The Kathy's Shopping Center is where Belmont Pizza used to be located. It's owned by the Charlie and Chuck Lewis family. The Charlie and Chuck Lewis family also own York Place on the downtown mall and a couple of other buildings in downtown Charlottesville. They are the, as far as I know, the only African American family, the only black family in the city of Charlottesville to own a shopping center. And I'd like to be proven wrong on that. If someone knows of another family or group, African American or black, that own a shopping center in the city of Charlottesville, please prove me wrong. But from what I can tell, that's the only one with the Kathy Shopping Center in Belmont, where Belmont Pizza used to be. And Yolanda Harrell and New Hill, which is a nonprofit that prides itself in empowering marginalized communities through financial literacy improvement, through entrepreneurship, through business savvy and acumen, through experience and networking. They've launched an incubator, Beacon Kitchen, that is basically trying to foster the next generation of food and beverage entrepreneurs. Great work for Yolanda Harrell. Great work for New Hill. Great work for Beacon Kitchen. I salute you. I'm giving you props. Nothing but props. I asked yesterday if fostering the next generation of business owners and entrepreneurs in a category of business that is experiencing significant headwinds was the best play. Regardless, anyone that gets into business and is willing to do the work, I applaud you as someone who on the 29th of May will have been self-employed for 17 years. For 17 years, I've woken up as the leader of an organization and try to figure out strategies to drive incremental revenue for our firm while keeping our existing clients happy and in the black. A wise man once told me, my mentor, Bill Nichman, who owns a boatload of real estate in the city in Albemarle County. At one time, he was one of the top 5 or 10 owners of real estate in Charlottesville and Albemarle County. I worked next to this man in his building on the downtown mall, the Professional Center, for 18 months. I picked his brain nonstop, and he said, Jerry, the key to business is not just finding new business, but it's keeping existing customers and relationships and clients happy. That's the key to being a good CEO. Drive incremental revenue while keeping your existing clients in the black and happy. And that's stood with me for 17 years. That's been the mantra of what we've done at this firm, the Miller Organization. I'm going to ask you, the viewer and listener, which incubator you should do, you should launch, which niche you should pursue, because I think F&B is one that faces significant headwinds. Judah, I want to weave you in on a 2-shot, studio camera and 2-shot, and then we'll give Charlottesville Sanitary Supply some love. The headline you find most intriguing today and why, my friend?
Well, I think the talk about incubators is interesting. I think what's particularly helpful about the restaurant incubator is that there's such high overhead that I think it creates it's extremely helpful that people wanting to use a kitchen can use something like this and not have to worry about ovens and refrigerators.
So you should talk about what you're referencing here. You're talking about the commissary nature of the Beacon Kitchen, where you can rent to utilize a commercial kitchen at Beacon. Mm-hmm. The Beacon model is not just an incubator. You can rent by the hour, you can rent by the month, you can rent extended period of time, commercial kitchen space to launch your food and beverage business. Maybe it's catering, for example, out of this kitchen. Mm-hmm. It's a way to test your model. I don't think that's a long-term play for food and beverage, though. But to your point, it's a way to test things out to see if your concept is proven or has legs or momentum. I asked it yesterday. I didn't have time to dig into it because I've been working on a deal since early December. And that deal has got under ratified, non-binding LOI and is heading to asset and purchase agreement and closing stage with an anticipation of a month from now. Everything is going to be fully ratified and the deal will be consummated. And yesterday we had a hurdle to clear, and fortunately we cleared it, so I had to cut the show off early yesterday. I alluded before I cut the show off early. Does the incubation of entrepreneurship in a category of business like food and beverage, is that the right path? And we can allude to Guadalajara closing on Fontaine Avenue. We can allude to Blue Moon Diner just saying, look, we don't want to do this anymore. We've worked our tails off. We're done running the diner. We can allude to a number of other businesses. I mean, heck, when's the last time Fellini's restaurant has opened in downtown Charlottesville? Right? I mean, when's the last time Blue Ridge Country Store has opened? Now, the scuttlebutt is the Bagby's team is very close to opening the Blue Ridge Country Store as an iteration or as a sub-brand and offshoot of Bagby's. And I wish that family nothing but the best in doing that. When's Draft Tap Room going to open? Right? I mean, Stefan Friedman is now focused on Old Metropolitan Hall? When's Draft Tapper? When's Commonwealth Sky Bar in Passaflora going to open? Right? I mean, we're talking institutions here that are closed. Ralph Sampson's just rebranded to Milk and Honey. Is anything in the Travinia Kitchen location in Stonefield? What's going on there? When's that going to open? What's going to go in the Shadwell spot on Pantops? Why is Shadwell still closed? Right? I mean, we can point to institutions that have just turned into ghost towns. Why incubate food and beverage is my point. Is that a fair question to ask?
I guess that's fair, but my question would be other incubators, are they necessary? Because the reason a food incubator is so helpful is, like I said, because of the overhead. But if you wanna start a business, do you need an incubator? Do you need some place that has that gives you access to what, a computer and a printer?
Incubation is not just computer and printer. Incubation is an opportunity to see if a brick and mortar location would work.
Okay.
It's a physical address, or you can use social and digital media to direct the marketplace to come patronize whatever you're selling. It doesn't just have to be access to a printer and computer. Incubation is also support group. It's also back office support. It's also learning human resources and receivables and payables and bookkeeping and accounting. And heck, I would imagine some of these incubators are as simple as, do I run it as a sole proprietorship? No, you don't. Should I set up an S Corp single member LLC if I'm the only owner? Yes, you should. It's in a lot of ways when we have these aspiring entrepreneurs come into our shop and we're providing the business consultation roadmap of how to get the brand up and running. But we do it not at a cheap clip. It's $2.95 an hour, where some of these incubators are doing it at next to nothing. My whole point yesterday, and I hope no one thinks that I'm throwing shade at New Hill. I love what Yolanda Harrell is doing. I love anyone who pursues entrepreneurship, okay? It's no easy. It's one of the most difficult yet rewarding things. Entrepreneurship is very much like parenthood. Raising children is the best, hardest thing ever and the longest, shortest thing ever. It's much like being a founder of a business. The best, hardest thing ever and the longest, shortest thing ever. I can't believe I'm about to be 17 years and doing this myself. And running a business, owning a business is a lot, and very similar to rearing or parenting a child. The child and the business need nurturing. The child needs to be fed formula, food, protein, milk. The business needs to be fed revenue. Needs to be taken care of. There needs to be a watchful eye. Mm-hmm. You can't just, take your eye off where you want to go as a parent or as a business owner. I'm just not sure that a food and beverage incubator is the right path. Like, maybe the path could be an incubator for ghost kitchens. Maybe ghost kitchens would be even more specific niche, right? Another incubation could be that you could pursue would be creating e-commerce stores. Like, if you want to do a local retail brand, is the local retailer now an e-commerce related that utilizes like live streaming and social shopping, where you create a studio like this and you want to sell some clothes, or you want to sell some widgets, or you want to sell something? Like, who does this really well? I've mentioned this on the show. Our son, our oldest, is getting into Pokemon collection. And there's this app called Whatnot. And Whatnot is an app that's all about live streaming auctions, where you can sell Pokemon cards, baseball cards, football cards, soccer cards, basketball cards in a live stream auction. You'll be like, okay, here's the baseball card I have here. This is a Chipper Jones rookie card with a patch on it, a piece of his jersey. It's 1 of 15. It's PSA graded. The grade is a 10. It's slabbed. There's only 15 out there, and this is one of the best conditioned ones. I'll start the bidding off on this at $500. And you can actually host a live auction on air with this Chipper Jones PSA 9 or 10 graded rookie card that's autographed, and you can attract bids from all over the world. Like maybe there's someone who wants to launch an incubator where they teach, I could do this, we don't have time to do this, frankly, but where you teach somebody that wants to create a locally owned brand based around online and social shopping and an e-commerce platform. You show them how to build a studio, cameras, equipment, lighting, tripods, cabling, microphones, how to take 4 different softwares like we're using, mesh them together, and live stream the content on air to people and to sell their widgets to the entire world, as opposed to selling their widgets to the people who drive up to their brick and mortar and buy it from them on a shelf.
Yeah.
Like we could do that if we wanted to. We don't have the time to do it, but we could.
There are live stream incubators, I think, in other parts of the country that provide space for people to do those types of videos.
Where is that now? Where is that in Charlottesville?
Definitely not in Charlottesville.
Right. So like this is why you watch and listen to the I Love CVille show. I'm going to try to look at stuff that's happening in Charlottesville and ask questions that are fair questions and challenge the status quo. Why are we doing an incubator tied to food and beverage at a time when institutional food and beverage brands, Guadalajara is an institution, and it's closed one of its locations on Fontaine.
Yeah.
Blue Moon Diner is an institution.
I mean, you can't.
Bluegrass Grill is an institution. Shadwell's, Passiflora, Draft. I mean, Little John's was closed for a while and then had to reopen and was saved by a distressed asset venture capitalist who owns a bunch of other brands, Ace Biscuit and Barbecue, Bonnie and Reed, Draft Tap Room, Old Metropolitan Hall. Brands that he bought at a discount, basically on the scrap heap, is how he bought these brands. Mm-hmm. Finish your thought. You can't.
I was just going to say that it's you can't really bundle all of those all these businesses together. They didn't all end for the same reasons.
Would you say that you're bullish on food and beverage right now in Charlottesville?
Not right now. I'm not bullish on anything in Charlottesville right now.
You wouldn't be bullish on a local brand creating a digital footprint, e-commerce, social shopping, and live streaming its wares to the world and selling that way?
I wouldn't be. You asked if I wouldn't be bullish.
You're not bullish on that?
I mean, I'd need to see more than just You're
not bullish on local weed? You're not bullish on local biotechnology? You're not bullish on local data science?
How about a biotech incubator?
Biotech incubator already exists.
Where?
CVille Biohub. Look it up online.
Do they help? Will they be helping? Let's put it this way: of the 5 to 8,000 people that we're going to get with the Manning Biotech Institute, will the Biotech Hub help people in Charlottesville fill those spots?
CVille Biohub accelerates the biotechnology industry through engagement, resourcing, and education. A tax-exempt organization, Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code. By 2030, CVille Biohub's vision is to strengthen the biotechnology ecosystem by doubling the size of the industry in the region, creating value and reducing barriers for companies to thrive and grow within the region. Look it up online, CVilleBiohub.org. Very familiar with this organization. Nikki Hastings, the co-founder and the executive director. The Biohub incubator exists. It absolutely exists. And if I was educating, I'm the parent of 2 boys, be like, you know what? This biotechnology and this data science, look at what's being built over here. An institute on Fontaine driven by a $100 million donation by Paul Manning. $350 million to build, 350,000 square feet. Depending on who you ask, Deep Throat pushed back yesterday on the numbers of the 5,000 to 8,000 people that are going to come from the biotechnology. Regardless, this is what we know. 800 scientists, roughly 800 scientists hired to work at Fontaine in the Paul Manning Biotech Institute. Like literally working in the 350,000 square feet. 800 scientists, okay?
Yeah.
They just hired their top dog from a publicly traded company, AstraZeneca. We tried to back of the napkin what he would be compensated. I would not be surprised if this man is compensated north of $500,000 a year. With as one of our commenters said yesterday, including fringe benefits. And I would bet you that north of $500,000 a year is maybe close to light. Okay, you're taking a vice president from a publicly traded company away from this publicly traded company that's a market leader, and you're bringing him to Charlottesville. You better seduce him and romanticize him with a compensation package that's extremely attractive, which obviously it worked. Okay, yeah. I've been told by, I'm not going to say who, but Judah, someone that's not going to lead me wrong, very wealthy person with this institute, that these people that are going to be working over there, it's not just $100,000 jobs here. We're talking deep, deep, deep yearly money jobs. Let's just say the median value, the median compensation for these jobs, I don't know what the median number is, but I was straight up told by a very wealthy person tied to this brand that it's not $100,000 jobs here. So let's just say it's $250,000 is the median average. And that's probably light. I don't know for sure, but let's just say $250,000 compensation. I asked the question on yesterday's show, if there's 800 people working there and their median compensation is $250K, and some of those folks are going to have partners that also work, right? That's family income, household income. That's probably knocking on the door of $400 or more a year. Where are these people going to live, and what's the impact it's going to have on housing in Charlottesville? And it's happening at the same time that we're seeing an exodus from the D.C. area, where some are certainly going to come down to Charlottesville after cashing out their equity in the D.C. area, right? So I think that trend, and we were the first to say it on this program, that trend should be something to follow. We still have to highlight the fact that data science is not completely up and running. Yep. And all the offshoot businesses tied to the data science school, a school funded by a wealthy donation, that's not completely up and running right now. I was told that the institute, the Paul Manning Institute, was 5,000 to 8,000 new jobs, direct and indirect. Deep Throat pegs it somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,200. He's a smart guy, respect a lot of what he says. He's only led me wrong maybe twice since he's been commenting on this show. Maybe 3 times. He's only led me wrong. He does some numbers. He thinks it's 3,200 jobs. Okay? Let's say it's 3,200 jobs, direct and indirect, at the Paul Manning Biotech Institute. Okay?
Yeah.
And let's say it's 3,200 jobs at the data science school, right? That's 6,400 jobs that are going to be online in the next 12 to 18 months. Where are 6,400 $250,000 a year jobs going to live? And if they have partners, where are they really going to live? And if I was the parent, and I am the parent of 2 kids, I would be like, you know what? You can do what dad does, and you can, have fun making deals, and it's tough sledding, and I can show you how to go about doing it, and I can show you how you can buy something in seller finance capacity where you broker the deal and you put 10% down on a commercial deal with a seller, and then you get tenants to come in and they cover the debt service on a 5-year balloon, and after 5 years you overpay what's owed, and in 60 months you have no money out of pocket that you take, and you buy that building with a 10% down payment because you had tenants ready to go. I can show them how to do that, and they can get a lot of bricks and sticks, and they can do what we've been doing here, what you've seen us been doing over the last 17 years. Or if you want to go into a path of your own, go biotechnology, go data science. Now you have to be really smart to do that. You have to get really good grades. You have to get into some of the top schools if you want to do it. That's the type of incubation maybe I would be, that I'm talking about. Not this F&B incubation. And I hope to God that in this F&B incubation that they're really deprioritizing the influence of third-party delivery. And I've talked about that on the show, that cannibalizes all your profits. Anyway, we've gotten off topic. Speaking of a local institution, we should give some props to Charlottesville Sanitary Supply. 60 consecutive years in business, online at charlottesvillesanitarysupply.com. And ladies and gentlemen, located on East High Street, John Vermillion and Andrew Vermillion have built a business that is a 3-generation strong business, and we wanted to see it last another 3 generations, so support them on East High Street. Conan Owen is watching the program. He owns the Sir Speedy franchise, and he is a man that is often in the know, and he has highlighted that Fellini's is now under contract.
Wow.
Conan, I have heard scuttlebutt about that. I've also heard that the owner of the Fellini's building will only lease to a restaurateur that is willing to keep Fellini's.
That's what I was just going to ask about.
Is that what you have heard, Conan? And is Fellini's going to reopen as Fellini's? Or did the owner of the building change their mind with how the building could be used? And he also says retailers could use some concept proving safe spaces or incubation, which is what I highlighted with I think the 2025 and forward version of retail is going to be digital e-commerce store and live streaming in a studio like this to sell stuff. That's what I think it's going to look like. And Conan Owen also says, do we have a photo of Conan that we can put on screen?
I don't, but I can look for one. Okay,
we should get Conan D. Owen's photo and have it ready to go when he reads other comments. This is what the I Love CVille show is all about. Roger Voisinay, who's a realtor, who's worked in the business for Roger. How long you been a realtor locally? He's a fantastic realtor with Remax. How long you been in real estate? 30 years, Raj? He's also a developer that's trying to develop a site in Woolen Mills. We had Roger on the show and Richard, the architect, to talk about their development project in Woolen Mills some time ago. He says Fellini's will be leased to an Afghanistan restaurant. It will not be Fellini's. And he's been in real estate for 45 years, Roger Voisinay. There's some breaking news on the I Love CVille show, ladies and gentlemen. This is why you watch the program. News that I did not break, news that Judah did not break. A commenter that's in the know, and Conan Owen, highlighted that Fellini's has been leased. And another commenter, Roger Voisinay, who I have the utmost respect for. Okay, that guy's like the spoken word. If he says it, I listen closely. He's been in real estate for 45 years. Says it's going to be an Afghan restaurant at Fellini's. There's some breaking news, and that's why you watch the I Love CVille show. The 2025 version of the Central Virginia newspaper is what we're doing right here. That's fantastic, Roger. Any other details you could share would be absolutely amazing. And Roger, I would also highlight, I would love to get you back on the show to talk all things Charlottesville, not just your Woolen Mills project, but all things Charlottesville, Roger. We could just have, we just got a new bottle of bourbon, 5-year-old bourbon. We can have a little bit of bourbon and talk all things Charlottesville. That would truly be my pleasure, Roger, if you were willing to do that. We got 2 TV stations, a local newspaper, and a local radio station watching right now. Legacy Media, Old Media, Fellini's story for your news cycle. Give credit to the I Love CVille show like they did on Friday's Daily Progress when Jim Ryan offered an apology and they highlighted the Burt Ellis interview. They credited the I Love CVille interview with Burt Ellis in the story in the Daily Progress, which then got syndicated by Lee Enterprises. If you're going to use the content that we do here, at least give credit to the show or a mention to the show. Goodness gracious, great balls of fire. All right, can I set the stage? Oh, Roger says, I would love to come back on the show, Jerry. Soon as our project in Woolen Mills is approved, we can do that. It should be within the next month. That's more breaking news from Voisinay. Congratulations, Roger. Your project will be approved within the next month? How long have you been working on this project, Roger? I mean, you have to have been working on this project for over 18 months, right? How long have you and Richard been working on that? I would love to know the exact time. And I'll have the bourbon ready for you, sir, for my friend. Let's see what he says. Has to be 18 months he's been working on that. You want to set the table for the Harvard story?
Let's see.
I can set the table if you want me to. Ready?
Yeah.
Let's make sure we take the Harvard story and we'll relate it back to Charlottesville, okay? So here's the Harvard story from last night. The federal government on Monday night said it was freezing more than $2 billion in grants to Harvard University after the school said it would not accept Trump administration's demands that included auditing viewpoints of the student body. The administration's Joint Task Force to Combat Anti-Semitism announced the cuts in a statement that called out the troubling entitlement mindset that is endemic in our nation's most prestigious universities and colleges. It said that $2.2 billion in multi-year grants and $60 million in multi-year contract value would be frozen to the Ivy League university Harvard. Earlier on Monday, Harvard rejected the Trump administration's demands. The Harvard University administration said on Twitter, on its official Twitter account, the irony is that Harvard University is publishing its statement, Judah, on Twitter, owned by Elon Musk, which is Trump's right-hand man. The Harvard University statement is this, quote, "The university will not surrender its independence or relinquish its constitutional rights. Neither Harvard nor any other private university can allow itself to be taken over by the federal government," end quote. This is a monumental story. And Roger Voisinay said he's been working on that project for 14 months, but 1 year before we submitted to the city, so longer than that. This is what's troubling with the Harvard story, okay, Judah? Mm-hmm. There's no place for anti-Semitism anywhere.
Agreed.
The protests that have been happening on grounds at these prestigious universities and higher education, for some reason, is breeding anti-Semitism. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's the crossroads of higher education and a sense of empowerment when it comes to free speech. Yes, you have the right to free speech. No, you do not have the right to be a racist, D-I-C-K, F-U-C-K.
I mean, you can.
Well, if you want to be a racist, D-I-C-K, F-U-C-K, you're going to deal with the collateral damage that comes with it.
Yeah.
Okay? Doesn't fly in my book.
Yeah. It doesn't fly in my book either. But
okay.
You can't stop people from being.
We're seeing racist D-I-C-Ks, F-U-C-Ks all over the Ivy League. Heck, we see it here at the University of Virginia. It ain't right.
Yeah.
It's not right. Trump, the way he's going about it, I'm not saying it's right either. Everything he does seems to be bull in the china shop. I'm going to crack eggs if I'm going to make an omelet. Some people are able to make the omelet in a much less antagonistic or caustic or aggressive manner.
With a lot less shells.
With a lot less, not just shells on the ground, but blood from slicing and dicing your fingers while making the omelet. Okay? Regardless, I'm going to try to tie this to Charlottesville. The University of Virginia received $354,700,000 in federal funding in 2023. Mm-hmm. You can look it up anywhere you want to find UVA federal funding. In 2023, $354,700,000. Virginia Tech received $282,100,000 in federal funding in 2023. UVA was the top player in funding received in the Commonwealth of Virginia in 2023, and it wasn't even close. I talked about this last week. This driver of our economy, number one, the University of Virginia, has a board of visitors that's looking to slash its budget. Bert Ellis, the fired BOV member, said, I wanted $500 million cut. This is happening.
Does that lead us to believe that anyone else did?
I think there's an appetite to cut the budget. I don't think there's an appetite to cut to the extreme that Bert wanted to do.
Yeah.
I would imagine Bert was the pinnacle of cutting and of change on the BOV.
Yeah, no doubt.
And I would say probably the 180 antithesis or opposite of Bert on that BOV is probably Robert Hardy, the rector, who was a Ralph Northam appointee and one of Jim Ryan's tight homies, super tight homies.
Yeah.
So my point is this. Harvard is in a showdown with Trump, who is going to make an example of Harvard. And I don't care how deep or robust your endowment is, $2.2 billion is a boatload of money.
No doubt.
And it's a boatload of money that you could use when it was not tied to earmark initiatives with your endowment. That's the key. Man, my Ray-Bans right here has got a piece coming off. Sorry, I'm ADHD right there. I look at this not from the role of Harvard, but I look at this of what this can do to the University of Virginia. That's how I look at it. What stood out to you from this story? And then we'll get to comments.
I think a lot of institutions are making these same choices now, and it's not just it's not just Ivy League schools. It's obviously UVA. I mean, they've at least alluded to the fact that they're possibly getting rid of DEI. I believe their time is pretty much up to prove that they've done it. But we've also got lower schools. We've got junior highs, high schools, who are also having to sign. I don't know what it is they're having to sign, but it's essentially saying we are
not doing DEI in school.
Getting rid of any DEI initiatives. And a lot of schools have to make a hard choice. That federal money is, as you said, extremely attractive, especially when it's not tied to a particular, like you mentioned with endowments. A particular.
It's not earmarked.
Yeah.
It's not earmarked as a legacy play for a name on a building, so your kids or your grandkids can forever say, "Granddaddy or Grandma did this, created this library, or this institute, or this biotech school, or this business school." Yeah. That's the difference.
Yeah.
That was the conversation I was having with the surgeon over the weekend. He's like, "We have this endowment. Why don't we just use the $14 billion to help us in this time of need?" That money was conditioned.
Not all of it, though.
The overwhelming majority, Judah.
I would like to hear the numbers.
I know the overwhelming majority is earmarked.
Yeah, but we don't have 500 new libraries. I get what you're saying, but I don't think that all of it is earmarked for.
We spent $350 million on a biotech school, $100+ million on a data science school, $21 million to buy Ivy Square Shopping Center where Foods of All Nations is, a couple of million to buy the Moe's barbecue location. This is what UVA has done. UVA is building housing for second years to live on grounds.
Yeah.
Everywhere you look, UVA is building something.
Yeah.
That money is coming from fundraising, in large part. If you had an opportunity to donate $100 million to a school, and you were one of your amazing qualities is have the least ego of anyone I've ever met. I admire that quality of you.
Are you talking about me?
Yeah, you're humble. You have many qualities that I admire. I sincerely mean that. Your problem-solving ability, your humility, your consistency in mood and demeanor, your even-keeled nature, many qualities I do not have. Wish I had them. One of the smartest people I know. You sincerely mean that.
Thank you.
But if you had $100 million to donate, I would bet you that you and your family would say, "Don't you want our name on that building?"
I mean, I have a poor view of.
So you would just give the money to a slush fund to be spent any way they want?
No,
Exactly.
I would.
You would want it earmarked for something, would you not?
Probably, if I were to give it to you, if I were to give money to UVA, I would want to know that it was.
Or Savannah. You went to Savannah College of Art and Design.
Anywhere I decided to give money, I would want to know that it was.
If you gave the money to SCAD, you would want it earmarked for something.
I don't know that I necessarily would want it earmarked for something. I would just want to know that it was. I would want assurances that it was being used responsibly and not just being, and not just going to CEO Craig Kent's, raise.
It's like, I was talking about this with my friend the other day. You see that commercial that's going around where it's like the Sarah McLachlan theme song. It's the animals that are in need.
Yeah, that's been on for
forever,
decades.
right? Is that the
was
SPCA?
on before the song even came out.
Is that UNICEF or SPCA?
I don't think it's either of them. I think it's
Nonprofit. I'm going to Google it. Nonprofit with Sarah McLachlan song. Is that SPCA or UNICEF? It's the ASPCA.
Is it?
Angel. The Sarah McLachlan song, Angel. They raise money for animal shelters. Yeah. They show animals that are literally like dying on. I hate that commercial.
Yeah, everybody does.
I'm an animal lover. I love animals.
Yeah.
I despise seeing animals suffering in any capacity, whether it's a snake or a rat.
Oh yeah.
A weasel, a fox, any animal suffering, I don't want to see.
I almost beat a child one time a couple decades ago when I saw him stomp on a beetle. It was like
Judah would go to jail for child abuse than allow a toddler to kill a beetle.
I mean, I didn't stop.
I will kill a spider. Judah literally, when there's a spider in the studio, takes the spider, shuffles it on an envelope, and walks it outside the studio so the spider can further live its life. That's how good of a person Judah is.
I spent most of my life hating spiders too.
I'm more focused on mammals. Judah's focused on insects.
Snakes and
okay, fine. I don't want to see reptiles suffer either.
You're talking about what we consider the higher species. That
there goes Oliver Kutner, real estate developer, right there in purple. Louis Kutner's son, newly married Oliver Kutner. My point is this: when you donate to that ASPCA nonprofit, because the Sarah McLachlan song "Angel" is pulling at your heartstrings,
yeah.
and it's give us $6 to $8 a month for the rest of the year. How much of that money is actually going to the movement, and how much of the money is going to a C-suite that's managing the nonprofit? You would be shocked of how much the donations are going to the pockets of personnel at these nonprofits.
Oh yeah, you've always got to be careful what you donate to.
And that's why these people that donate these monies to the University of Virginia or to these other prestigious schools that have endowments of $14 or $15 billion like UVA has, that money's earmarked of what you can do. It doesn't just go into a slush fund. My point is for you to say that you can just go to the endowment like this surgeon was saying over the weekend to me and say, this is how you can keep these hiring freezes from happening or us from taking pay cuts and performance-based bonuses when health system morale is at an all-time low. I said, dude, Mr. Surgeon, that's not how it works. He didn't like hearing, the dude, Mr. Surgeon. But, it's just who I am. It's like, it's earmarked for stuff. That's why they're building buildings everywhere. Bill McChesney wants to build a Whitcower Stadium for the Savannah Bananas.
Oh, my goodness.
And Conan Owen echoes what we're saying. It's the national ASPCA campaign, which doesn't rescue any animals. They raise money, spend too much on overhead, and distribute the rest to shelters. Better off giving directly to your local shelter. Amen.
No doubt.
Jason Howard, I put this in perspective. UVA received $354 million in federal funding in 2023. UVA's current operating budget is $5.8 billion a year. So the money it received from federal funding is basically 6-7% of its operating budget.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a lot. That is a lot, ladies and gentlemen, that it could potentially cut, especially at the same time that the BOV is trying to cut from its operating. So you're losing money from potentially both pots there. Follow it, guys. The Harvard story is something that we can tie to Charlottesville. 125. Next headline. What do you got, Judah?
Oh, let's see.
Is this the Delevan?
We've got some headlines about Delevan.
Okay, Delevan. Will you put the photos on screen? Give them the specs for the listing, and then I want to get to Rob's comments that I thought were very good.
Here are the
lower third and then specs on the listing if you can. This is in the Fifeville neighborhood, J-Dubs, right? It's in the Fifeville neighborhood. You give them the specs.
Yeah. They're on the screen. It's $300K ask, 2-bedroom, 1 bath. 864 square feet. Was it 1960?
And you
when
laugh
it was
because of literal like sadness here. You're not laughing because of the what are you laughing at here? Just out of curiosity.
I'm laughing because
You're saying this is a dump, is what you're laughing
we're
at,
putting
aren't
this
you?
up like it's an actual listing, and
It is a listing.
I know, but it's not. Nobody's scanning through Zillow and going, "Oh, I can afford that place. I'm going to move in there, and
No, they're not
everything's going
doing
to be."
I'm scanning through Zillow as somebody that sees it for content for the show and as an investor, but no one's looking at this to actually live there.
Yeah, and here are some photos.
Look at the photos on screen. And the specs are built in 1960,
Yeah.
864 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
This is such a small lot. It's barely a seventh of an acre. Rob, who's in this, is a smart guy, made this comment. The assessment, the land, is $130K. And the improvements, $175K. This was on yesterday's show. He says, actually, it's not really that insane. The fact that the assessor put any value on the house is surprising, but most of their assessments are done via algorithm. I would have challenged the structure value if I were the owner. The land doubled due to upzoning and observed gentrification in that area. But Charlottesville and Albemarle were not assessed, priced with teardown in mind a few years ago, but not pricing and assessment are based on, I'm not sure what he means by this comment here. He's basically saying things are being assessed like we're in a big-time resort market, as I've mentioned in the past. Mm-hmm. Rob also says, but this will turn from an entry-level housing option to most likely an investment rental property or a fully gentrified new build for a tech or medical person in that location. Deep Throat does reconnaissance on the LLC that owns this.
Nice.
I'm going to go to the Charlottesville GIS, so I have the LLC. What's the address, Judah, on that?
60.
Actually, there was only 5 houses on Delevan. Is it Delevan?
Yeah, 606.
All right, so Delevan Street. Anyone can use the Charlottesville DIS. Sugar. All right, there's Delevan Street. 606. 606 is owned by Goodbye Real Estate LLC. Deep Throat dug into the LLC, Goodbye Real Estate LLC, and tracked down who the owner was.
Nice.
The owner, I'm scrolling through the comments, was an ex-banker at a Lebanese bank. He says Lebanese banks were riddled with sleazeballs, a fact that destroyed about $50 billion in value the last decade, sending the whole country into bankruptcy. He highlights the assessment on the structure of itself, the $170K, which is what Rob highlighted, was bogus because that's a teardown. He said the land is $130, just like Rob did. He said the structure value is insane and is just flat out wrong, where Rob is highlighting that this is done via algorithm. And he's right. It really is. I mean, most of these assessments are computer assessments, digital assessments, and not actual walk around the dirt, walk around the land assessments. At a time, local jurisdictions had assessors. Their assessors were moonlighting assessors, and they were Uber drivers. They would drive to plots of land in various jurisdictions, parcels of land, and take photos while Uber driving, and they made some extra money. Those are fact. That legitimately is. They were moonlighting as like junior varsity assessors. So here you got this situation. It's being assessed on the upside of the dirt. Assessed on the upside of the dirt. Deep Throat makes this point. The zoning, the RNA, is not the best of zoning. And he wants a point of clarity, Deep Throat, that the owner works for a bank in Nova, but his previous employers were Lebanese banks in Lebanon. So some good sleuthing over there from Deep Throat.
Yeah.
So here you got two guys that I trust with this topic in particular, that know about this topic in particular way more than I do. And I like to think I know a little bit about this because this is how I make my living. But I'm willing to admit that both these two guys, Rob and Deep Throat, know about this topic way more than me. Don't be the smartest person in the room. Be the guy in the room that surrounds yourself with the smartest people in the room. That's what I've always tried to do. Okay? Be friends with all the smart people. Be friends with all the jocks. Be friends with all the nerds. Be friends with all the music players, musicians. Be friends with everybody. Okay? Assessment based on opportunity and upside, not today's value.
Right.
My problem with that is this. Okay? Here's my problem with that. You're assessing on comparables and upside and opportunity. You do that, and people that are fixed income, retired, unemployed, or just trying to live in their house for a long period of time are going to get shafted.
Which is probably why the couple that owned it sold it.
Great segue, Judah Wickower, Charlottesville GIS. Go back to the ownership history. And this is all public record. I'm not speaking out of turn.
You said they bought it in 84, right?
The Burton family had owned this since 1983, and they paid $25K for it.
Yeah.
They sold it in February of this year for...
I thought they sold it in March.
Excuse me. Thank you, Judah. They sold it in March of this year for $150K. The 21st of March, it closed. All public record on the GIS. The Burton family, James and Irene Burton. That would lead me to believe it's a couple, right?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe brother and sister. Certainly family. They have the same last name.
Yeah.
Sold it on March of the 21st of March for $150,000. Not even a month later, the dude has it listed for 2x what he bought it for. That means you have a banker in Northern Virginia with some kind of algorithm that he's figured out, or maybe he's just effing scouring Zillow and the Realtor app.
Yeah.
And he's cold calling, or he has a realtor that he's hired and said, I got a fund. I want to create a fund of some kind. This guy makes a boatload of money as a banker in Nova. I'm going to take some of this money that I have, or I'm going to pool some money, and I'm going to go buy distressed real estate from family members that are not sophisticated. Maybe they're historically marginalized. Maybe they have some kind of financial difficulty. And I'm just going to offer them some kind of lowball offer and see if they take it. And immediately, I'm going to flip that property without doing anything to it.
Yeah.
And try to make money doing that.
I mean, you can see the door
It's effing teardown. Yeah. Now this guy's, let's say he makes
partly done.
Let's say on the 300,000, and I don't think it's going to sell for 300,000. Let's say in the 300,000, this guy walks with. Let's build a conservative model. Let's just build a conservative model. Let's call it 92.5% of his 300K. He's going to have closing costs, commissions, taxes, recording fees. He's going to have to pay a commission to the other side. I guarantee you he's negotiated a discount commission for his listing broker. Let's just say 92.5%, and that's very conservative. That leaves $277,500. Let's subtract the bone 50 that he paid, and you're talking $127,500 of leftover money. Now, he still has to pay taxes on that. It's not a primary residence. One of the things that our family has done really well is live in a primary residence for 2 years. We did this in Glenmore. We lived in it just under 4 years. We bought it for $700,000. We sold it for $1.2 million, right at the $500,000 capital gains. And because we had been in that primary residence more than 2 years, we didn't pay any taxes on that $500,000. We put 20% down on that $700,000. We were overpaying the mortgage on the $700,000 of the house in Glenmore, and we walked with a boatload of money. And then we did it over in Ivy. We're probably going to go do it in Ivy again, and all we have to do is sleep on a pillow to do that. That's all we have to do is sleep on a pillow.
Yeah.
And you're building generational wealth. This is what I've been trying to talk with you about with what you're doing. Mm-hmm. You could easily take your current setup, convert that into a rental, and do the same thing. And I've been trying to push you on that over here. We've been having that conversation, right?
Yeah, somewhat.
Okay, we should do that. This guy, if he does this 8, 10 times a year, 12 times a year,
Yeah.
what has he created? A couple million dollar a year business? Just doing some kind of unsophisticated algorithm, or just scrolling Zillow, targeting poor neighborhoods, socioeconomic distressed neighborhoods, offering lowball offers with a realtor that's been negotiated its commission, cherry pick certain poor spots of popular cities. That's an effing business. It's a snaky business.
I mean, is it snaky when the assessment backs him up? I mean, is it snaky when
It's snaky if he doesn't.
when people like
Now you're starting to sound like me over here.
I'm not defending the guy.
I'm starting to sound like you, and you're starting to sound like me.
You made a good point about the people that owned this. It could be, it could be a couple that have owned it since '84. It could be their kids who inherited it from the parents, but it's been in the family for what?
The James Burton has owned it since 1983. And 1983 was owned by James Burton and William H. Burton. And then in 2004, it was owned by James Burton and Cedric Burton. And then in 2024, James and Cedric owned it. And then in 2025, James and Irene. But this one fella, James Burton, has owned it since 1983. So if James Burton bought this in 1983 for $25K, James Burton is no spring chicken. From the time he bought it in 83 to now, it's been 42 years.
Yeah.
And I can tell you right now, people might say, oh, $25,000 in 1983. He sold it for $150,000 in 2025.
But no, he didn't.
The 83 to 2025 is not really that good of a return.
No.
He got a 6x return on his money. If I took $25,000 in 1983 and invested it across many different asset classes, I could guarantee you my return would be a lot more than that.
Yeah.
This is and I'm not trying to throw shade on anybody, and this is all public record. Somebody who bought something for $25,000 in 1983 probably pumped a bunch of money into the asset anyway to own it.
Possibly, yeah.
It's not like you're just pumping $25,000 into stocks and equities and you leave it, like into some index funds, and you leave it alone and do nothing.
And $25,000 was
shit ton of money.
Excuse
my language, I'm sorry.
A different amount of money 40 years ago than it is today.
83, $25,000 bought you a house, right? He probably paid a mortgage on that to buy it. He got it in 83, and 2025 he sold it for $150. We're not dealing with sophistication here. But this Lebanese guy, this guy that works for this bank in Nova that used to work for a Lebanese bank, we're dealing with somebody that's pretty sophisticated here.
Yeah.
Someone who's got an LLC working for a bank in Nova, buying something in March and then offering it and selling it in April.
A month later.
That's sophistication. I got a buddy who's in wholesales real estate. Craziest thing I've ever seen. This guy, riskiest thing I've ever seen, but he makes so much money doing it. He finds properties, gets these properties under contract. In some cases, he closes on them, and immediately sells the deal sometimes when they're under contract.
Yeah.
It is insane what he does. Mm-hmm. He buys a property that he thinks is a good deal, gets it under contract, and sells the contract.
Yeah. So I looked up $25,000 in '83. It was the equivalent of roughly $80,000 today. So
we're not talking
they
about
didn't 6x their money.
We're not right. So this guy, this Nova guy, is it a ripoff if both parties agree to it?
I mean, we don't know what the deal was. We don't know how it happened. We don't know if these
Rob.
people desperately needed money. And this guy said, hey, I'll give you cash now. Don't worry about, any of the stuff that would normally take, a week or a month or whatever. But, yeah, if they agreed to it.
It's starting to sound like me over here.
I mean, I'm just being logical.
No, I know, but you're just saying
you're
starting to sound like me.
I think. And what I'm more worried about the assessment because the assessment is, despite what.
Holy doo-doo. Listen to this. Deep Throat, listen to this. Rob Neal, listen to this. Great stuff from, we got to get his photo to put it on screen.
Which one?
Owen Brenner.
Who's?
Owen Brenner. We got to make sure we have Owen Brenner's photo on screen.
Owen Brenner?
I know, it's a new viewer and listener. I love when we have quality new viewers and listeners. So Conan Owen's photo, we need to get for the family to start putting on screen. They're providing value. And Owen Brenner's photo is another one. Owen Brenner says, Jerry, tell your viewers and listeners to hop on the Charlottesville GIS and search 501 Ridge Street. The exact same story you're talking about. Burton owns somebody, and then this Goodbye LLC buys it from him. So I'm on Charlottesville GIS, and I type in 501 Ridge Street, and I go to ownership history, and the same Burton family sold to Goodbye Real Estate in April. Geez Louise, 14 days ago for $300,000. 300,000. I'm now going to take 501 Ridge Street, Charlottesville, and pump this into my search engine to see if there it is. It's now for sale. For $495,000. So this guy who works for the bank in Northern Virginia that's targeting Charlottesville property, 2 documented instances where he's bought something from this Burton family significantly below market. In this case, the Burton family has owned 501 Ridge Street since 1985. Pays $300,000 for it, and now 2 days later lists it for $495,000 and highlights in the listing, and it's the same listing agent, the Gordon Cohen person from Weishert Realtors, Nancy BM Real Estate. All right, let's get this man's brokerage. The agent is Gordon Cohen. I'm going to copy the name of the brokerage, and I'm going to put the name of the brokerage into my search engine. And it's a firm out of Harrisonburg. It's not even a local to market brokerage. We should spend some time digging in tomorrow. I got to cut the show off today because I got to go make some money.
I've got another show to get ready
and
for.
He's got another show to get ready for at 2:30, Nate Kibler's show. But it looks like this banker out of Northern Virginia, the principal of Goodbye Real Estate LLC, has done this a couple of times with this Burton family.
That's very.
Maybe it's the Burton family
suspicious?
saying that. I don't think it's suspicious. I would bet you it's heirs of the Burton family that are like, we don't want to own this real estate. We just want to unload it and get the money. Now, if they're not 1031 exchanging, this would be a question for a CPA. Would the heirs have to 1031 exchange that not to get hammered with capital gains? That's a great question for a CPA. Or I bet you Deep Throat, I bet you Rob would know that question. Would these heirs have to 1031, Rob, that real estate not to get hammered with taxes? Starker exchange that real estate not to get hammered with taxes? Or the heirs just, they would, right? 1031 means you take the money you get from selling this real estate and roll it into another piece of property, you get hammered with taxes. Love to know the answer to that. That would be a question that you would ask your CPA before selling anything. Owen Brenner, we're going to get your photo and put it on screen. OwenBrenner. Make sure we have his photo and Conan's photo as well. All right, we went 75 straight minutes on the I Love CVille show today, really digging deep into real estate. We hope you enjoyed it. I love this kind of stuff. Deep Throat answers my question. No, real estate basis would step up at DEF. Thank you. There you go. Smart men right there. I'd have to ask my CPA that question. I appreciate that, Deep Throat. Thank you. So that's 2 instances of that happening. I wonder how, you know what? I can figure that out on the Charlottesville GIS. I'm going to copy the owner name, Goodbye Real Estate LLC. I'm going to go to the search function of the GIS. Owner's name. I'm going to type Goodbye Real Estate LLC. There it is into the GIS. Goodbye Real Estate. Those are the two properties it owns in the city of Charlottesville. 606 Delevan Street and 501 Ridge Street are the two properties it owns. It's only been done twice. 606 Delevan Street and 501 Ridge Street. Fascinating. I learned from you guys. All right, that's all she wrote. We hope you enjoyed the program. We're going to go make some money. Judah Wickower, yours truly, Jerry Miller. We'll see you guys at 2:30 for the White Mountain Ministry Show and at 12:30 tomorrow for the I Love CVille Show. So long.